You asked for it, and you got it. Mike in Texas wanted me back. Maybe other people wanted me back. I don't know, but I am back. I am Corey Crisan. He is Chris Halicke. This
Who
is
are
the
you
Southside
exactly?
Beat. Yeah, who am I? Yeah, it's been a minute. I know. Between traveling, between covering the Senior Bowl, it's been almost a week. And yes, Jerry, I have made it back. Long week in Mobile, good week in Mobile. Hope you were all able to read and take in the information I was able to obtain over at the Senior Bowl last week. But got back Friday. Yesterday there was a family situation, so took time with the family yesterday. But back in the saddle today, Southside Beat as we are Monday through Friday, 3 until 3:30. And Chris, we didn't get to hash the Royal Rumble as Rick brings up Jim Cornette, but I did accurately pick the results of the Royal Rumble, if you remember correctly.
Yep.
So we'll take that. Although now, what is going on over there? My goodness. My goodness. But that's a whole nother podcast. That's another
actually so
genre.
Yesterday my wrestling reference was to try to get people to flood the comments as soon as I saw you on here with hashtag we want Cory.
Hey.
Because of the whole, we want Cody thing that's going around
Cody.
right now. So
yeah, almost Stella. Did I go AWOL or did people know where I was at the whole time? It's different. AWOL is when people don't know where I'm at. Absent without leave. I have reasons for not being here the last few shows. But you know what? As B-Phil says, we're going to finish the story right here on this very program. Lots to catch up on, lots to get into. Hashtag We Want Cory is now trending viral, #1 on Twitter, X, Facebook, Instagram, Threads, whatever you're on. I'm not on social media, I don't think, as much, which is probably a good thing. I'm on it, obviously, from work. And Darren, rule #1, don't get worked into a shoot either. Am I working or am I shooting? I don't know. Senior Bowl, I know Chris obviously took you all through the proceedings of the Senior Bowl throughout the end of the week last week and maybe some of yesterday, as the game was played on Saturday.
I didn't actually talk about the game at all.
It was not much of a game. That's why.
Well, I mean the game. I mean, I I think it was on Friday. I explained to them like Cory's leaving early now because that's how much the game matters.
Mm-hmm.
It really does not matter. The whole point of media being there really is to interact with the players, and you really don't get to do that for the game, and it doesn't matter. So
no, I mean, and even so, some of the players that were there early in the week were practicing Tuesday, Wednesday, left. Like, if you wanted to see Jackson Powers Johnson, who was a star for me on Tuesday and Wednesday, if you wanted to see him play in the game, you were SOL because he left Thursday. He didn't practice Thursday. He left. He was there for Media Day Wednesday and got out of town. And other players did it too. Quinion Mitchell, the corner from Toledo, who I'm high on, he left he practiced Thursday, but I don't think he played in the game. There were several players that really did well early in the week and said, all right, I did enough. Goodbye. See ya. And that's kind of what I did as well, to be honest with you.
Well, it makes a lot of sense because why play that game whenever you run the risk of getting injured in an actual football game, and not just hurt your draft stock but kill your draft stock. I mean, there's very little benefit to playing in that game because, like I said, when by the time teams get to the Senior Bowl and the Combine, they've already done all their homework. At this point, the Senior Bowl is more of the, I use the metaphor, it's the speed dating round where every player gets to talk to every team, which means you talk to a player for about 20 seconds.
Yep.
And then the Combine is more where they can wine them and dine them a little bit. You can have formal meetings with players and stuff like that. And then that gets even more intimate whenever you get to pro days. You can take them out to dinner and stuff like that. You can have dinners at the Combine too, but you have more opportunities for those more intimate meetings with players during pro days and stuff like that. So the Senior Bowl is like the appetizer to the draft course.
Nice. The main course that is
the draft,
the Combine. Well, the Combine. I think it was Powers Johnson that actually used that phrase to me. Was speed dating. It was almost like speed dating, where he just got to meet with a bunch of different teams. Just got to talk to a bunch of different teams. Rico coming in with a $20 contribution. Thank you very much. Says, love solo Chris, but Cory and Chris together is pure magic. So, guys, don't see as many holes as last offseason. Do you foresee any problems to fill needs between free agents in the draft? I don't know if it's necessarily the same amount of holes. I think they're different holes, what we're seeing right now. But here's what I think is a reassuring thing to an extent. I think this offseason, the Steelers are going into it with clearly defined needs. There's clearly defined needs on this roster. There isn't a gray area within, I mean, there always is to some extent, to some depth, maybe. But as far as starting capable players, I think you, me, Chris, whoever is sitting here listening to this, can pretty much workshop and brainstorm on, okay, the Steelers definitively need this position, that position, another position. Whereas in some years, of course, when they were contending teams just use the draft to fill, and yeah, they get pieces to build for the future. But those teams really just find players to fill in the gaps that they need, which is why Kansas City won a Super Bowl and then drafted Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who barely plays for him now. That's a perfect example of that. When you're the Steelers and you have clearly defined needs, and it's not like they're the Panthers where they need everything. Yeah. They need things, but they don't need to retool the whole roster. They don't need to break everything down. And Jordan says it here, center, and I would just say tackle. Forget right tackle or left tackle. Offensive tackle. They need a center and an offensive tackle. Those are two very clearly defined needs. Now, whether they approach those in free agency or they approach those in the draft, still to be determined. But I think, and Chris could piggyback off of this, I think that the needs are clearly defined going into this offseason.
Yeah, the good thing is that, you know, as you mentioned, there isn't as many there aren't as many holes in terms of you need starter capable players. I think there are really two positions you absolutely have to get a starting capable player, and that's center and cornerback. You need a center because Arthur Smith's system requires it. And when I say a center, I mean a center that is very, very athletic. If I trip over my words or sound like crap, I feel like crap today.
Yeah. We get you out a little early today. Don't worry. Don't worry. We'll get you out. I'm here. Don't worry.
Yeah, center is they need that position. They need to upgrade there. You know, get a really athletic guy that can block in those wide zone concepts. And then cornerback, they need somebody opposite Joey Porter Jr. They really do. I don't know if that means you have to have a big free agent splash or something like that, or just get somebody who is capable of starting opposite of Joey. You got to get somebody. And then when you look at every other position, would you feel good about tackle if your starting tackles are Dan Moore and Broderick Jones? No, you'd like to upgrade over Dan Moore. Is it the end of the world if you go into the season with Dan Moore and Broderick Jones, but you also definitely addressed center, you upgraded at center, you upgraded at cornerback, you added legitimate depth to the defensive line, and you even added maybe even more depth to the inside linebackers position? If you did all those things and you're able, and then you go into the season with Dan Moore and Broderick Jones, you feel a little bit better about it because at least you attacked everything else on the roster. Do I think they need to upgrade at tackle? Yes, I do. 100%. But there are more pressing needs than tackle as we sit right now.
Do I think they need an upgrade at center? Absolutely. Do I think they need an upgrade at tackle? Yes. Do I think they need an upgrade at corner? Yes. Inside linebacker? Perhaps. Inside defensive line? Yes. Safety? Perhaps. I think those are the positions right there that you can look at and say, okay, if the Steelers approach one over the other in free agency and then one over the other in the draft, all right, that's a plan. You have to think that Omar Khan, Mike Tomlin, the powers that be, have this laid out already, and they do. If you watched, and I did my best to, I don't want to say report on strictly what Mike Tomlin was doing, but in a way, I watched a lot of Mike Tomlin at the Senior Bowl to see who he was talking to and what positions he was watching. And of course, Omar Khan and Andy Weidel were on the field as well. Terrell Austin was around. So, when the Steelers are paying attention to multiple positions, that's doing due diligence. But, Mike Tomlin was all over the offensive line. He was all over the corners and receivers. He was all over the defensive line. Like, if you want a tell as to what the Steelers might do when it comes to the draft, those are the positions he looked at really hard. Now, maybe he looked at those positions and said, okay, here's options. And then they go back to the drawing board when free agency starts and say, all right, we feel strongly about these prospects as draft guys. We feel strongly about these guys as free agents. And they branch off from there. Like, this is the foundation of the offseason that Mike Tomlin and company got to start building when the Senior Bowl week happened. And again, I think the needs are so clear cut and dry in this offseason where, and yeah, you could look at quarterback depth as well. I'm not saying draft one first round because in my opinion, if they draft one first round, that's not where the pick should be. If they're going to take a quarterback, I think unless something incredible happens, right? Yeah. Like if Jaden Daniels falls to 20, like then we could talk about it.
Or if there's some sort of like trade where you can possibly trade up and get like and not give up much of anything and somehow trade up and get one of those guys. Not saying that's going to happen. I'm just saying in terms of the draft itself, free agency is to me is where you address needs. The draft should be about best player available in each round. Sure. Like I really, really like the Steelers need to get back to doing that. This past draft, I think they had a really good balance of best player available versus like need. They weren't reaching, for Broderick Jones at 14, yes, he was a tackle, so that addressed the need. But when you looked at everybody else who was on the board, he was up there. Joey Porter Jr. was almost a slam dunk at 32 because everybody thought he was a first round cornerback. You had certain guys that, fit, where the need was, but they were also one of the best players available. And so I think that's what the Steelers need to go to. And so if quarterback happens to play out just based off of sheer happenstance in the first round, why not? It's the most important position on the field.
Yeah. Darren asked, he says, Ramon is big on Charles Turner from LSU. Comparisons pounce. Your thoughts? I thought Turner looked good in the Senior Bowl as well. Like if they don't go with, in my opinion, if they don't go with either Powers Johnson or Frazier out of West Virginia, I think Turner could be a legit option, perhaps day 2, day 3. It just depends on how that draft falls. It's a really deep offensive line class, and honestly, it's really deep for centers as well when it comes to that position specifically.
A deep free agency class too for centers, as well. So the Steelers will have their opportunities to upgrade at center, both in free agency and the draft.
And I think Jerry says wide receiver. I think wide receiver is more likely to be addressed in the draft than it is in free agency. Yeah. Just because of the amount of money. Do they want to allocate that amount of money? Think of it this way. They signed Allen Robinson for $10 million last year, and he didn't do much this year. Do you really want to let that situation happen again? And now Robinson's going to become an easy cap casualty. Like, do they want to go down that route again and try to sign a free agent wide receiver when they could draft somebody at not just a cheaper rate, but also somebody they could keep around for quite a while? We know the track record the Steelers have in recent memory of drafted wide receivers. They do pretty well with them for a specific amount of time. It's finite.
Especially on day 2, yeah.
Yeah, especially on day 2. They do a good job of finding these under-the-radar guys. Now, Calvin Austin is kind of what he is at this point. Speedster, punt returner, not really going to be anything more than a go-get-it receiver. So do you try to find a more complete guy on day 2 when it comes to second and third rounds? Do you find a more complete receiver? And one of these guys that stuck out to me, there was Ladd McConkey of Georgia, who could have played his way into the first round, but Tomlin really had his eyes on Roman Wilson out of Michigan. And he was one of the guys, if you read my story, it was last Wednesday I published it. Tomlin put together Roman Wilson and then Toledo's Quinyon Mitchell, the receiver cornerback matchup. He made that work. He made that happen. And Tomlin was on top of that play the entire time when those two went head to head. And Roman Wilson out of Michigan is a guy that really stood out at the Senior Bowl. There's obviously underclassmen options that we'll get to know once the combine happens. But I think that wide receiver is going to be on the board at some point, whether that's day 2 or day 3, still to be seen. I think that could be a day 2 option, though.
Yeah. Rico coming in with another contribution, $10. And,
thank you, Rico.
Yeah, I appreciate it. He asks, do you think something like 2 years, $3 million, 2 guaranteed would be enough to keep Mason? That would be Mason Rudolph. Also feel great things about things overall with Kahn and Weidel. I think you're going to have to talk up the money when it comes to Mason Rudolph. $3 million for a quarterback, even if that's per year, that's nothing. Anybody in the NFL would pay that kind of money to have Mason Rudolph as their backup quarterback. Anybody.
It's going to take a little more than that, I think.
Yeah. Now, when you're talking about 2 years or 3 years, then yeah, I mean, it's going to probably take a 2 or 3 year contract. But you're probably looking more. Cody kind of puts it here more in the 10 million. If I had to guess, more in the 10 million AAV range. Kind of probably a similar contract to what Mitch Trubisky got whenever they extended him.
Yeah.
Probably a little bit more on the expensive side for a guy who could potentially be a backup or also compete for a starting job, which is exactly what they would be bringing Mason in to do. They would bring Mason back should he be willing to come back. If they were to sign him, he would be coming back to compete with Kenny Pickett in training camp for the starting job. And then he would be at minimum a number 2. He'd be the backup at minimum.
And keep in mind, Arthur Smith has a say in this. Arthur Smith has a say on whether he wants Mason Rudolph in to compete with Kenny Pickett. He has some say in it. I'm not saying he's the end all be all with it, but the offensive coordinator,
that's Mike Tomlin and Art Rooney. They are the decision makers. Yeah,
correct. But the offensive coordinator is going to have some kind of input as to who's on his roster. Mm-hmm. And if the Steelers get some intel that they can get Ryan Tannehill, who was a Pro Bowler under Smith, for a same or similar rate, why not explore that option? It's just diligence at that point.
Yeah, I think that's something I do think, and Mike Tomlin and Art Rooney II have been very, very open about this. I think plan A when it comes to quarterback is to re-sign Mason Rudolph. If that does not work out, I do think it would not surprise me if Ryan Tannehill was one of their first options to sign. You could probably sign him for pretty cheap because of his age. And the fact that he's now probably more likely to be a backup rather than a starter. But I still think that Ryan Tannehill could come in and compete with Kenny Pickett in training camp and possibly give him a run for his money in terms of that starting job. And the main reason is because Ryan, like as you mentioned, Ryan Tannehill's played in the system before. He's played under Arthur Smith before and had his 2 best seasons, by far his 2 best seasons under Arthur Smith. And what will be a pretty similar distribution of skills, like biggest strength on offense is at running back, right? Dynamic playmaker at receiver, very, talented tight end, once they beef up the offensive line, and they are, especially if they were to upgrade at center, offensive line would be solid, pretty similar situation that the Titans had in 19 and 20. So, yeah, that would not shock me if things fall through with Mason Rudolph, that Ryan Tannehill becomes plan B.
Yeah. Hodge says, no, Corey, bad Corey. Look, if they sign Ryan Tannehill, he's not going to start week 1. Ryan Tannehill would be a literal backup option to be the backup. The Mason Rudolph is going to be the clear priority for this front office in this offseason when it comes to that position. If it doesn't work out, then you have to have a plan B. And if Ryan Tannehill's as good as it gets when it comes to plan B and he's cost efficient, keep in mind, like, it sounds good in theory that the Steelers could go trade for Justin Fields or sign Kirk Cousins or do something really flashy with the position. But there's a checkbook to keep, and there's roster to reconstruct, and there's money to move around. If they go sign one of the big free agents, they're going to have to move some money around. Now, if one of these veterans as a cheaper option or somebody in the draft, for my money at the Senior Bowl, Spencer Rattler, and Michael Pratt were the 2 standouts for me. Rattler, the quarterback out of South Carolina, and Pratt, the quarterback out of Tulane. Those 2 were the best quarterbacks, in my opinion, in the class of Bo Nix and Michael Penix and Sam Hartman, and really good quarterbacks down in Mobile. Rattler and Pratt, to me, were the 2 best there, and those 2 guys, I think, are day 3 picks. So, in my opinion, what the roster is going to be next year, and this is just sitting here in the beginning of February projecting, I think it's going to be Kenny when it comes to the quarterback position. I think it's going to be Kenny, one of Rudolph or Tannehill, and one of those rookies. I think that's the most logical step for the Steelers to go because, number one, they won't be committing a ton of money. They'll be committing, in fact, less money, I believe, to the position in a general sense. Number 2, they're going to have their competition that they want when it comes to Kenny versus Mason or whoever else it is. Number 3, as I mentioned it here, and Chris kind of brings it up here in the comments, we're not going to mortgage the franchise for Justin Fields. No, they're not going to move that kind of money around. They have told us in the past, because they have done this, they're going to pay their defense top dollar. They're going to pay top dollar to have those guys. They're going to pay up front for some of those really good pieces on offense, like a Deontay Johnson. They're going to give Najee that 5th-year option. Jaylen Warren has to have an extension worked out for him. This is about the money. This is about keeping a checkbook. This isn't about fantasy football and trades on Madden. This is different. You have to keep in mind that the Rooneys and Omar Khan and Andy Weidel have to follow models. They have to follow systems. They have to follow the NFL's rules, literally, of money they can move. If they sign one of these big-name quarterbacks to compete with Kenny Pickett, number one, they have to be damn sure that they can move the money to do it. Number two, they have to make sure that he is as good, if not better than Kenny Pickett. And I'm sorry, I'm not going to sit here and say that Justin Fields is better than Kenny Pickett by a big margin. You want one of those moves to be big margin move. Justin Fields is not head and shoulders above Kenny Pickett. Kirk Cousins
but I think
is not head and shoulders above Kenny Pickett.
Well, but I highly disagree with your second one.
Head and shoulders?
Yes.
I think he's better, not head and shoulders.
1,000% head and shoulders better.
Okay. That's fine.
Kirk Cousins could be better with one knee than Kenny Pickett.
Okay.
I don't even care about the age or anything like that. Kirk Cousins has been an efficient and productive passer in the NFL for years now. I don't think people really understand how good Kirk Cousins actually is.
That's fair. I get that.
He is tier 2 when it comes to okay, here are your top guys, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, all those guys, those 5-6 guys. Kirk Cousins is in that second tier below. Good enough quarterback to be on a Super Bowl winning team, but not carry a team to the Super Bowl. That's what Kenny Pickett is nowhere near that right now. Yeah. Do I think Kenny Pickett is capable of getting there? Does he have the tools to get there? 100%. I think he has those tools. Mm-hmm. But is he there yet? No, he has not proven that. And he's had 2 seasons to do it. Sticky B asked a really good question here. If they really want Mason, why are they not giving him an offer before he hits free agency? Well, they can, but remember, free agency doesn't start for almost another a little more than a month.
You gotta go discipline.
What's that?
You gotta go discipline over there.
No, I was looking at the calendar. So my kids have this whole area here. I'll actually show. I don't care.
Oh, okay.
I got a little calendar over there.
Oh, okay.
For my kids to so that they can update the
nice
days.
Nice little office space there.
Yeah. So so a little bit more than a month. Yeah. When it comes to almost free agency, right now they are still sorting out the coaching staff. They got to get that sorted out. We know Pat Meyer's coming back. We know Frisman Jackson's not coming back. They got to get all that stuff sorted out. They got to get their ducks in a row before they can really start addressing players. But they will approach Mason Rudolph before free agency. Nobody else can talk to him right now anyway. Only the Steelers can talk to him.
Right.
So there's really no hurry in terms of we got to get Mason under contract now. They got to get everything sorted so that they can't put all their eggs in the Mason Rudolph basket.
No.
They want to. They want Mason Rudolph back, but they can't do that.
Well, there's this to consider too, as Mike points out. Mason is waiting to see his market as well as the organization. Mason Rudolph has due diligence to do as well. Yeah. Even if he wants to come back to Pittsburgh, there's still free agency is free agency. There could be a team that really loves Mason Rudolph, really loves what he did in that finite amount of time for Pittsburgh last season, and knowing that he's a veteran guy and he comes from that really good 2018 quarterback class, and knowing that he's still 28 years old and has room to improve, they can look at his body of work. Another team could, and they could just simply throw more money at him than Pittsburgh would. Now, I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think that's likely going to happen. I think what this is going to come down to is Mason Rudolph's desire to be here. And I feel like the gauge that I have is that he wants to be back. So if he has a chance to compete, a legitimate chance to compete to be the Steelers starting quarterback next year, and he's being sold that and he believes it and his agent reads into it and they believe it and he resigns here, all right, here we go. But then if not, then they have to allocate that somewhere else and have a plan B. So look, I think the money has to be right. The situation has to be right for Mason. He has to have a good feel that the Steelers are being genuine when it comes to offering him a chance to compete for the job. And look, if he stays here, I think he has a good chance, maybe not a good chance. I think he has a chance. Let me rephrase that. He has a chance to win the starting job. He'll have a chance. Mm-hmm. But it just matters of whether they want to pay to keep him. Is it going to take 8, 10, 12? What's it going to take? And the Rudolph camp is by the way, doing their homework. They have an idea of what the market's going to be. They have an idea of what Mason should get
They
paid.
will once the legal tampering period begins.
Correct.
But yeah, it's just, like, hold on a second. There was a comment here I wanted to bring up here.
And he's what, 3 years older than Kenny? 25 to 28?
I think he's 28, if I'm not mistaken. I don't have that.
Right.
I don't have that right. But see that, and that's why I think, like, if you talk about, like, we brought up Ryan Tannehill, you talk about Mason Rudolph versus Ryan Tannehill. Mason Rudolph is the more attractive quarterback to me anyway. Even though Tannehill obviously has the track record, and he also has the track record of playing very, very well under Arthur Smith. I think it'll be his age 36 season, I think, coming up, either 36 or 37. He's up there in age. And I'm just not ready to throw the kind of money that it would take to get, Ryan Tannehill, or even as a backup or a fringe starter. I would rather just stick with Mason Rudolph because he's at least got continuity with the rest of the offensive players.
Sure.
And so I would rather have Mason Rudolph over Ryan Tannehill right now. Based off of money, if money were no object, I'd be wanting Kirk Cousins all day. But money is obviously an object here. The salary cap is an object, and you've got to, for what is rumored to be out there of what Kirk Cousins wants for money, absolutely not. The Steelers don't need to be doing that right now.
Yeah.
Hold on a second. There's something here. Jared brought up something here too, and then this is something that I think was misconstrued, and the context here is big. Jared said, just got here, so sorry if I already mentioned, but Arthur Smith's response during his interview with Missy Matthews said a lot. This team is going to put its eggs in the Kenny basket no matter what. I actually disagree with that to a point. Listen, he's not going to talk about Mason Rudolph right now. Arthur Smith is not going to talk about Mason Rudolph. Nobody who is employed by the Steelers, other than Mike Tomlin or Art Rooney II, are going to say anything about Mason Rudolph, because the only three people that might say anything about Mason Rudolph are the three people who actually help make decisions. Mike Tomlin, Art Rooney II, no Marcon. That's it. Nobody else is going to talk about Mason Rudolph because he's not contractually obligated to the Steelers right now. He's a free. He will be an unrestricted free agent. So Arthur Smith's not going to talk about that because Mason Rudolph might not be here. So why talk about Rudolph if that's not even a guaranteed possibility? They're talking about Kenny right now because of the quarterbacks who are on the roster right now. Kenny is the clear starter.
Correct.
Okay, Kenny is the clear starter over Mitch Trubisky. Those are the only two quarterbacks on the roster.
And keep in mind too, that was done with a team website, the team's website. So if you want to use the parallel of like team-controlled media and team-controlled environment, that's where that interview was done. Arthur Smith didn't do that interview with me or Chris or DK or any other outlet in Pittsburgh. That was done in the team's building with the team reporter, team microphones, team cameras, everything. It went on Steelers.com and Steelers social media. So no, he's not going to talk about Mason Rudolph at all because like you said, he's not a Steeler. Mason Rudolph right now, as of this moment, is not a Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback. He's a free agent to be quarterback. He's in that limbo period right now. Yeah. Good stuff today, Chris. I think it's apropos we close out a little bit early today since you're not feeling well.
Drinking out of my 10th anniversary mug after 10 years. You're still the best husband. Keep that shit up.
The censor doesn't pick that one up. We're going to make sure the thumbnail doesn't have that in there.
Oh, I won't.
We're going to make sure the thumbnail doesn't have that in there.
It's definitely one of my favorite presents, though.
My goodness. Join us again tomorrow. In case it hasn't been said on here yet, making plans to go to the NFL Combine. So I will be in Indianapolis for that event at the end of the month. Getting ready for that. Thank you for the welcome back, everybody. It's been a few days. Flew back Friday. Had a family situation yesterday. Just had to take the day away from the show, but back today. More to come. DKPittsburghSports.com. Make sure you stay tuned to that feed. This is the time of the year where we're just kind of putting stuff in that feed for you to read, for you to stay in tune with, and for you to observe. There's going to be more coming, obviously, but
yeah,
that's going to be your main source right now.
I've got a Chalk Talk coming this week. It's going to be on looking back at the Steelers rookie class, how they performed, a little bit of a deeper dive. And since I'm only going to dive into the players who actually played, so 5 of them, but I can't do 1,000 words on each player.
No.
So won't be as probably as intricate or as detailed as like the Arthur Smith stuff, but still be a little bit of a closer look on why this rookie class was so promising. And then after that, we're getting ready for the combine. It's going to be all draft stuff. I'm going to be looking at certain prospects, certain positions, certain things that the Steelers can target going in. And obviously once we go into the combine, that is just another layer into the whole draft process, which by the way, Indy's I've said it before, but Indy's a boatload of fun. You're going to have a blast at the combine.
Stay with my uncle too out there, which would be nice. My uncle's opened up his spare room for his nephew. So I'm looking forward to that. It'll be a fun trip. DK and Ramon coming up in about 30 minutes right here where you found this on DK Pittsburgh Sports on YouTube. Remember, we're available on podcast form, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, wherever you get those. Please remember to download, like, share, subscribe, give us a star rating. Hope you liked it. Hope you enjoyed it. And we can keep this going for you. So
Hold on a second. Hold on. Hodge says the combine is too far away. Okay, let me look at my calendar here.
Yeah, go to your wall over there. It's
okay. So today's February 6th. Okay.
Correct.
Super Bowl is Sunday.
Correct.
The combine, literally the first day of the combine is 3 weeks from today.
I thought it was February 29.
No, 27. It's a Tuesday. That's the first day.
I thought it was 29.
100%.
Oh.
You'll go there Monday. The first day, actually, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Omar Khan will talk on that Tuesday or Wednesday, if I'm not mistaken.
Let me double check that. I thought it was the 29th. Let's see.
Pretty sure. Now,
it is the 26th. You're right.
The 29th might be the first day of player workouts.
Right.
But there's a couple of things that happened the 2 days before. Omar Khan will be talking. Omar Khan will be talking either that Tuesday or Wednesday for sure. Because that's like the one time he like does like a that's like the Omar Khan like you have Mike Tomlin's end of season presser, and then Art Rooney's got his thing, and then Omar speaks at the combine, and then Mike Tomlin will speak again at the owners meetings, and that's like the things. So the draft, yes, the draft is too far away. April 20th. Yeah. The draft.
Yeah, drills begin the 29th. That's my bad.
Yeah.
That's my bad. I thought it was the 20th. My bad.
Yeah. So
there you go.
No, but yeah, I mean, but 3 weeks from today, there will be content coming from Lucas Oil Field, or at least the Indiana Convention Center.
Right. It's going to be a fun one. We're looking forward to that.
Get ready to walk.
We're looking forward to that. Yeah. Oh,
I can't tell you the amount of time. My watch was asking, who the hell stole the watch? And because Chris does not walk this much, and I racked up a lot of miles during combine.
We're looking forward to that. All right, we'll get out of here. DK and Ramon in 30 minutes. He's Chris. I'm Cory. We're looking forward to the combine for sure. Have a good day, everybody. Talk to you soon.